have a question for you. Who wants to ask? Who's next?
I'll start.
Okay, that's okay with me. Yes, that's fine.
I have a question. Good afternoon. This is JB. Love the book. This is my second reading of it, my sister and I. And there was a part in the book that I love subliminal messages, imagery, and things like that. And I noticed that anytime Elizabeth felt, and a lot of us know this, anytime Elizabeth felt anxious or maybe intimidated or nervous, she would count her steps. And that happened
I love that you noticed that. That's so great. Most people don't. They're like, why does she do that? And I'm like, when she's scared, she counts.
Okay, all right. So that was the message you were trying to relay. That was her fear mechanism. Okay, all right. That was
so
very
good.
good.
A lot of people are like, it's just weird. It was random. And I was like, no, it wasn't random. She was scared every time. It was kind of a way to calm herself or something, or pay attention to something other than her scared feelings.
Right. Well, that was genius. I loved that because, like I said, I love subliminal imagery, symbolism. So kudos for that. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Celeste.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Celeste.
I absolutely love the book. This was my second read, and I kind of wanted I wanted to know, what did you use as your motivation or your experience to make Maddie authentic?
Oh, yeah. I think it was just a lot of empathy. I was just trying to imagine. I mean, I was a caregiver for a long time, so I did family daycare, and I took care of a lot of babies that weren't my own babies, and there's always a kind of interesting dynamic between you and the children's parents. Now, obviously, this is a completely different setting, but I took some of those experiences to kind of understand who she was. It was super important to me that she not be weak, that she not be a stereotype, that she be someone who you could see her full humanity in this very worked situation, and that she was doing her best to create a best life for herself and her son. And Elizabeth too, but really that was secondary for her, right? Her relationship with Elizabeth was just something that was her job, I guess. And not that she didn't actually care for her, but it was secondary to her. So like one of the first scenes that was really interesting to write was to try to imagine what it would be like to like come from the quarters into the birthing room, or into the room that was kind of her room, that was Elizabeth's room, and just really slow it down and try to imagine what it would be like in this person's head. So that's what I did. And I read a lot. I read a lot of slave narratives. I read a lot of things about that time, a lot of Octavia Butler's work.
Okay.
And learn, noticed all the ways the people who were enslaved were, subverting the system while trying to, stay alive and survive, right? Yeah.
Okay. Was anything in the book you?
Well, I think my best self was like Maddie, right? I real wish we were like Maddie. I'm a pretty spiritual person, and I feel like your spiritual grounding and the spiritual grounding that Maddie got from her family is something that really saw her through and gave her something kind of bigger to hold on to than the corrupt system she was embedded in. I'm really good with kids. I've always been very good with kids, and I'm someone who almost despite myself would love the children I cared for, and I would be like, it's gonna break your heart. Like, you love this kid, and then they're gonna leave your program and not see him anymore, and it's gonna break your heart. But I just did it over and over again. So in that way, Maddie was like, I'm not gonna love Lizbeth, and then she did love Lizbeth.
Yeah, right.
She almost couldn't help herself. I think I'm also someone, even the fact that I wrote this book and I got it into the world and I worked hard at it, there's ways in which I don't necessarily follow like societal rules that were put on me. And so I feel like, Maddie was that way while still being like appearing to be going along with the system.
Okay.
Thank you.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Who else has a question for my question was answered? Your question was answered.
Well, I'll just say this. This is Valerie. And hi, what I would like to say is what I appreciated reading early in the book is when, although Maddie got a whipping from Mr. Wainwright, you didn't make the lashes or the beating so graphic that it went on and on. It was graphic enough that she had to sit outside in the heat, and then he made her take her clothes off. What I also appreciated was that you didn't make her be raped. She wasn't raped.
I didn't make her what?
Be raped.
Right.
He didn't rape her. So I really appreciated that about it.
Thank you. I'm glad you appreciate that. Some people say to me, like, I really held back, or it wasn't enough accounting of the brutality.
No, it was enough.
Part of what I wanted to convey is that there were families, like the Wainwrights, who would tell themselves, well, we're kind, right? It's not, we're not that awful kind of slavery. We're raped and brutalized and beaten, and so we're kind. And it's like, well, it's still a very horrific system, and it's still there was a threat of violence constantly. Okay? There was always the threat of violence without it being, so graphic. And I really wanted Maddie. I mean, of course, I loved Maddie, right? So after that whipping scene, I actually went over to my neighbor's house and I just started sobbing. I was like, I cannot believe that just happened to Maddie. And I wrote it, but I still didn't want her to be hurt, right? Yeah. So there were ways in which I was protective of her, even as a character, and I wanted her to be kind of come through the whole experience with a lot of wholeness.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, to see how she passed it on to her own kids in that way, right? So in the story, like, she had good parenting from her mother and their caregivers, who had good parenting from her mother and their caregivers. Like, Maddie had better parenting than Miss Ann did, than Elizabeth's mom.
Yes, right.
And you could see Maddie was a better parent because she was loved better than Ann wasn't. Ann was basically alone in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad you spared us a rape scene. Thank you for sparing us that.
Yeah.
I think
there
that
was one, under the willow tree, but it wasn't,
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Karen, and I really did enjoy the book. It's, I was kind of surprised by how good it was with being your first novel.
Oh, okay.
The only thing that I didn't, that I wanted more of was to know what happened, or elaborate more on what happened with Maddie after she got to Ohio and reunited with Samuel. I really wish she had elaborated more on that part of the book.
Yeah. And to be honest, I actually regret now not writing more about that part. Like, I look at the book and I think, oh, I wish I had put more chapters in there about her life. I mean, in some ways, she just got a great life, right? And so there isn't a lot more to say. She got her freedom in so many ways.
And then in a way, I thought maybe you were doing it to lead into a second novel. So I said maybe you didn't elaborate because you're going to go to a second novel. So I was thinking maybe that's the way.
So I'm just finishing my second novel, which is not on this topic, and then my third novel is going to go back to that world.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to Virginia during the Reconstruction period, and it'll have, Maddie and her children and Elizabeth and her children. So
they'll be in the third book? Oh, wow.
That will be my next book. So it probably won't be out for like 2 years because I'm a very slow writer, but I'm excited. Yeah.
Oh, that's great news, because we wondered, in the book at the end, when she and Elizabeth reunite with each other, the kind of world they live in, they're not allowed to visit with each other, and they're not allowed to really be friends with each other publicly.
Yeah.
But we wanted to see more of that connection between them that they developed when Elizabeth was a baby. So we'll get to see that relationship continue in the third book.
We will.
That's good. I think the readers will like that.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
My name's Celestial, and I don't really have a question. I just wanted to let you know I really did love the book, and that final scene, the birthing scene, was very emotional for me. I cried through that whole section. So anytime a book moves me to tears, I think it's a really good read.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. There are many reasons I wrote the book, but one of them is that I realized I had never seen birthing scenes in books. I read one book with birthing scenes, and it's this thing that women do, and for us it's like, I mean, it's horrible to say it's like a battle, but it is like, you don't do it that many times, and it's just this monstrous event in your life, and yet it's not represented in literature, which just seems so strange to me. So I decided to just really slow down and take a look at birth, and was really happy to be able to do that.
That's good.
Wow. Okay. I read, this is Celeste again. I read some of the other reviews, and it was one by a professor of some sort who identified herself as being African American, and she challenged the fact that you even wrote this book. Do you get challenged by African Americans, and if you do, how do you react to those questions and assumptions?
Yeah, I have been, and I'd say majority it's African Americans, but there's also some white people or people of other ethnic backgrounds that say you should only write about your own family culture. And I really can respect that. I can understand that as an argument. But for whatever reason, this is the story that grabbed me. That was like, I just have to tell this story. And there's ways in which I think part of what I could do by not being, I'm not the descendant of slaves, and I'm not the descendant of slave owners. Like, neither one of those is my family culture. My dad is from Egypt. He's a first generation. He was born in Egypt, and my brother was born in Egypt, so I came to the U.S. I was born here, but I was the first. And my mom is like Irish background, so Irish and French, but not kind of working class farmers. You know, they were farmers, but they weren't owning class, but they also weren't, indentured servants or anything. So there's ways in which I felt like I could write about Maddie's world and Lisbeth's world from a little bit of distance.
Okay.
What I've gotten the most criticism about, which I thought was interesting, I really thought about whether I could write in dialect or not. There's some big arguments about whether it's okay to use dialect. And people have complained more, and their white people have complained about the dialect of the white people.
Oh.
So they use no contractions. I don't know if you noticed that. But the owning class in the book used no contractions. And that was actually accurate at the time. Owning class people did not use any contractions until closer to like 1900. So that I've got more complaints about. People are like, oh, Mrs. Ann and Mr. Wainwright are way too stiff. They wouldn't really be that formal. And it's like, well, no, that's actually accurate. Yeah, so I was willing to take on the criticism. I'm also I really appreciate it when African Americans or Black people are honest with me about, how they feel about me choosing to write this story. I mean, that's how I was a person, and I really respect that and appreciate it.
Okay, good. What was the extent? This is Roz again.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the extent of your research, because it was very authentic.
Yes, it was a lot. I had no idea how much research I would have to do, and my guess is I would not have had the determination or the fortitude to write this book before the internet. Like, there were way too many obstacles, right? So with the internet, I could be like, oh my gosh, what did they eat?
Okay.
Because I'd like write a scene and I'd be like, oh, I'm about to serve food. I could make up what they serve. Really, I want it to be authentic.
Right.
So I could find cookbooks from that time period. Okay. I could find music from that time period. So the song, that they sing, that's authentic from that time period as far as we know. Even where it was set, I had originally thought I was going to have it be like right across the Ohio River so that freedom was just right there.
Right.
But it turned out there weren't any plantations that far west, and so I had to make it a little further east. The only thing I never found out was the actual price of a yard of fabric in that time period. And I called librarians, and I had librarians do searches for me, and I couldn't find anyone who could find out the actual price. So I extrapolated the prices based on like 1880.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So you're talking about when they were making the dresses and how much the fabric was going to cost. Okay,
Yeah.
I was wondering where you got those numbers from, because I'm like 92 cents a yard. Is that reasonable for the time period? Okay, that's great.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing I'll confess that I did that now I know is a mistake is birth certificates.
Yeah.
So they didn't have birth certificates back then, and so I feel a little badly about that fudge.
Yeah.
Unintention. That was my unintention.
Yeah. I think we mentioned that during our discussion was, you know, how did she get a birth certificate?